Please, our topic of today is greenhouse growth model. Immediately after the greenhouse growth model, we are going to look at the criteria that we have to determine before we select a strategy. So after which we are going to look at CSR, corporate social responsibility. They have been streamlined in line with the requirements of the syllabus. So they are not something that is too bogus or out of the syllabus. So within the time frame, I'm going to add another 30 minutes to cover up for the time that we have wasted. So please accept my apology. So to start with, we are starting with greenhouse growth model. So the greenhouse growth model is a model that corporate organization, individual business owner, conglomerate organization, and multinational companies use for strategic planning, management of organizational conflict, managing corporate expansion, and various forms of conflicts, and formulation of strategy for sustainable organizational growth. So greenhouse growth model is a popular strategic management tool, which is often used in today's modern businesses to make the right strategic decision. So before we go in depth into greenhouse growth model, we have to know that greenhouse growth model have to do with time factor, because the scholar mentioned this, so that when we are writing exam and by the time we are dealing with our case study, it will be more easier for us to have a robust idea about greenhouse growth model. The very reason why the greenhouse growth model talks about time is because the model talks about the age and size of the organization. So the only variable in the greenhouse growth model is the time factor. Why? Because the model is a descriptive framework. The greenhouse growth model, it is a descriptive framework in which the age of the organization is marked out against the size of the organization. That is key when we are talking of the time factor, meaning that as the company is increasing in age, it's always increasing in size, all things being equal. But there is possibility that some organization will be increasing in age. They have been in the industry for about 20, 30 years, but yes, they are not expanding in size. Probably, that's why they are 20 years in existence in the industry. They don't have more than 2 branches. Maybe the branches is not productive. So greenhouse growth model talks about the age of the organization, the size of the organization, the expansion of the company, and the likely strategies the company face. So this strategy, how can we manage it? What expert opinion you and I can give to the company to manage each phases of the company's life? So above all, we can say that the greenhouse growth model talks about the life cycle of the organization. If you can remember vividly, in fact, we are going to discuss it here because the 99.9% of the CSMA was merged with SFM now. You can recall that we have this at skill level, we discussed about product life cycle. Opposite product life cycle is the greenhouse growth model that talks about organizational life cycle. So the greenhouse growth model is very, very essential in that the phases require different competency of the entrepreneur due to myriad of changes, environmental threats, and life cycle crisis. What is the meaning of this? The meaning is that as the company transits from one stage to another, from phase 1, that is the phase of creativity, to phase 2, which is the phase of direction. there are a series of challenges within and outside the company. There are a series of environmental threats that comes from uncontrollable factors. That environmental threats can be from the competitors, it can be from the political factors, socioeconomic factors, technological problem. It can be from our competitors, it can be from the government itself. If the government policy as at present is unfavorable, how can we do with this so that it will not retrogress the progress of the organization? And at the same time, the life cycle crisis. One of the typical examples of the life cycle crisis that we are going to discuss is the problem of leadership that occur at the first phase of the Gleaner's growth model. So all these things we are going to do justice to them. So the diagrammatic representation that you are seeing give us holistic picture of all the stages in the Gleaner's growth model. We have the organization size in the x-axis, while the organization age, we have it underneath the y-axis. When you look at it, this picture shows that the Gleaner's growth model have 6 stages. Ordinarily, when Larry Gleaner formulated this model, he stated at the onset that the Gleaner growth model have 5 stages. But in practice now, organizations are now extending it. Experts in strategic financial management, strategic management, and the rest, they are advocating that this phase can be extended to 6 phases. And the phase 5 and 6, they have a lot of things in common. So we are going to look at the phase 1, which is the phase of growth through creativity. Phase 2 is called the phase of growth through direction. Phase 3, it is called the phase of growth through delegation. Phase 4 is the phase of growth through coordination. While the phase 5, the company achieve further growth through collaboration. And in the phase 6, we have another spontaneous and expansion in growth of the company through alliance. So underneath, we have a contour line that is not straight. That line is not straight to indicate that the company have some challenges that they manage in each phases. That is transmission from phase 1 to 2, 2 to 3 is not something that is just a smooth journey. There are issues, strategic issues to be managed. So in the first phase, we have crisis of leadership. Why the crisis of leadership? So we are going to discuss that. But I can brief you. The reason why we have the crisis of leadership in the phase 1 is because the company is using a flat structure, entrepreneurial structure, in which all major strategic decisions revolve around the owner of the company. So the simple meaning of that is that the company is using centralized decision making. It is the owner or owners of the company that make all decisions. So as the company is growing fast, there are some major decisions, operational decisions, probably at the functional level, that the leader needs to delegate. So lack of delegation of some minor decisions, lack of delegation of tasks brings about leadership crisis. So we are going to advise the company here at that phase 1. As the company continue to experience increasing growth, they have to change their organization structure. So let's look at all these phases one by one. The phase 1, in exam condition, we can call it phase 1, we can call it stage 1, we can call it step 1. Please note that phase is the same thing as stage, is the same thing as step. So that phase 1 is a phase that the company grow through creativity, as stated by the scholar. So the phase 1 is the pioneer phase. That means it is the first phase of the organization life cycle. That's the reason why you see it as pioneer phase. The first phase at which the company is newly established. We register the company, we already make decision on the office we are using, maybe a rented apartment, or probably the company build their own structure, or we get that office through leasing. We recruited our staff, we have known our target customers, the nature of our business, our operational activities, and we start the business newly. That's the phase one. So in that phase one, there are some features that are peculiar with that phase one. Part of the feature is that the company is young. That company is still at the stage of infancy. The company is young and relatively small in size. What has attributed to that small size too, you know it, is because we are just starting. The organization is informal because all major formal structures, departmentalization, having a unit within units, all these things has not been done. There is possibility that we can have the admin manager. The admin manager will be the one to perform the role of finance, the role of procurement, the role of HR. So the organization is informal and the employees are loyal. Apart from being loyal, we should know that the employees are little, meaning that at the pioneer stage of the organization life, the staff strength is always small. The number of staff that are recruited, they are smaller. As the company is growing in size, expanding, diversifying, then we employ more skilled staff. So there is a flat organization structure. I've explained that. The flat organization structure was attributed to the fact that all structure, decision making, allocation of resources revolve around the owner. And the entrepreneur is externally oriented. So the entrepreneur, they're now getting more orientation, more advice, valuable advice from customers, from suppliers to enrich and nurture the growth of the organization. So we can see in that green pencil, that is done to make it easier for you anytime you are reading, that the phase one is a phase that is characterized with crisis of leadership, and that is justified. There is a crisis of leadership because the organization is growing too fast. That is for companies that is growing too fast. Because at times I've told you, some companies are experiencing static growth or fluctuating growth. So if this organization grows too fast, it will become more complex. That complexity will make it that the entrepreneur is no longer able to take stock of the situation, and a leadership crisis will arise. Because as they are calling him here, hello sir, manager, this one we call, hello sir, some customers are waiting for you. Sir, we have problem with the plant. Some machines are breakdown. Sir, what can we do to this check since you said we cannot collect cash? You know, all these issues comes up, and this one now will overwhelm the entrepreneur. So coordination and internal control can no longer be carried out by one person. And that's the reason why we call the phase one as a phase of leadership, a phase of crisis of leadership. All because the leader now has to delegate some responsibility to some of the few staff that we have. To overcome this problem, the solution is this. There is a need for an improved structure and delegation of tasks. If the company is fortunate to experience further growth and move to phase two, that phase two is called the phase of growth through direction. Why do we call it a phase of growth through direction? By now, you and I should know that we call it a phase of growth through direction because we are now having more formal structure. We are now having more delegation of tasks and units. Let's go together. In this management phase of the greener growth model, functional managers are appointed. Can you see? We are now having more direction. We are creating a pathway for synergy and integration of functional activities within the organization. We are now assigning duties, portfolios to some of our staff and newly recruited staff. So functional managers are appointed, as a result of which a middle management is created that control the primary processes. So all these primary processes have been delegated now. It's not the owner or the MD that will be running up and down to do everything. Part of the directions that we have that make the company to become standardized is that rules, procedures, and businesses are formalized and standardized. We now have laid down rules, procedures, operation manual, ethical standard, tactic strategies to follow for us to enhance our performance and gain competitive advantage. And we should know that despite the fact that we are delegating some little responsibilities and we have procedural rules and standards in place, including a formalized structure, the problem still lies that the central coordination remains in the hands of the entrepreneur. And that makes the phase two to experience crisis of autonomy. The crisis of autonomy persists because the issue of coordination, control, allocation of resources, and making some key strategic decisions is being taken by the entrepreneur or the appointed middle manager. So that makes the crisis of autonomy to occur. This crisis of autonomy can be resolved through further delegation and supervision, monitoring, and managing both human and material resources. And that is exactly what the company will do in phase 3. In phase 3 of the greenhouse growth model, there's an increase in age and size of the company in phase 3. And this increase in age and size of the company, the scholar says, is being achieved through delegation and other strategies put in place. So phase 3, you say, tell the examiner that the company experienced further growth through delegation. So in this phase 3, to overcome the problem of autonomy that I told you, the company ensure decentralizations of some decisions and tasks. The entrepreneur delegates important tasks to his middle management. Important tasks is being delegated to the middle manager, that is production manager, sales manager, finance manager, marketing manager, production manager, store manager. They all have important tasks to do in order for them to manage their unit. So the reason why we are delegating at this stage is that the results are aimed for that the middle manager are responsible for achieving tactical and operational objectives. So all those managers that we delegate important tasks to, they will be accountable for results. They will be accountable to give feedback and reports on all their activities in their unit or department. So at this phase 3, the more we have the functional managers in place that perform key roles at their various units or departments, Those managers are regarded as strategic business unit manager. And as a result of that, it will give the top management opportunity to focus on strategic issues while they relent on the ability and experience of the functional manager to manage operational functions. That point has been included, and this is the point. Management move at a strategic level and rarely intervene in all operational activities. They always report. That is what they need. Report, supervision, and acting as management by exception. Anytime there is a crisis, they can support the middleman for them to achieve a common goals. Still in phase 3, a division structure is created with separate product group and individual manager. So we now have a divisional manager for sales, divisional manager for marketing, divisional manager for promotion, divisional manager for logistic, divisional manager for MRS, that is maintenance, repair and servicing, divisional manager for procurement. So we have a divisional manager being created. So what the major challenge that we have as a crisis in phase 3 is the crisis of control. And that is very, very normal. Because in a complex organization that is experiencing spontaneous growth, and we have what we call a divisional structure, it is the function of the director to ensure that all these divisions are harnessed together. There must be networking and synergy. We must be on top of all these divisions so that we can be able to coordinate activities both at the divisional level and the top management level or the lower management level. So we have to note that the more the divisional managers, the more the difficulties it will become for the management board to coordinate, because they have to coordinate all the divisions that operate independently under them. No matter the number of divisions that we know, they still belong to the same one parent company. So due to that creation of large number of divisions, SBUs, then there is a risk of management crisis that we call control crisis. With experience, team building, synergy, this management control crisis can be achieved by the top management. In phase 4, that's the phase of growth through coordination. This phase 4, you should always start your explanation by telling the examiner that the company equally experience further increase in age and size. The increase in age and size at this level now has bring about further expansion. There is possibility of diversification of investments. We now have portfolio and range of products. We experience increase in number of customers. We have been able to penetrate and capture major markets. So at this phase 4, it is the standardization phase of the greenhouse growth model, and more emphasis is put on coordination. More emphasis is put on coordination between various units, departments, regional offices. Our emphasis is how we can coordinate all these units so that there won't be any lapses, oversight, or derailment in goals. So at this phase, all the divisional managers In a large, diversified organization, the various staff department take up a strong position from the headquarters. That means at this phase, the headquarters put in place a very strong, innovative, and networking strategy that will make coordination to be very easy. In that all the diversified organization structures and units, they report to the headquarters. Their activities are monitored. The company at phase 4 ensure that they invest heavily in staff development, and they have to ensure that all the divisional managers too are not perpetrating subordination of interest due to the power that we give them. So all the divisional managers have to be monitored, and we have to ensure that they build succession plan for the company and not to abuse the position that we give them. In phase 4, to ensure proper coordination and alignment with the organization vision and mission statement at various divisional units, the company make a lot of rigid procedures put in place. And that rigid procedure is what we call red tape or red tapeism crisis. That red tapeism crisis means a lot of bureaucratic procedures has to be observed. And this one will make the company to become less flexible and rigid. So that rigidity will bring about a form of slow decision making in some units, all because we have to wait for some decision to be taken at the headquarters before it can be implemented as divisional or various branches of the organization. In phase 5, the phase 5 of the Greenhouse growth model is the phase of collaboration or cooperation. Because at this phase, the phase is a very sensitive phase that require team building, team unity, capacity development, and investment in human capital development and orientation of the staff. So the phase 5 is called the cooperation phase of the Greenhouse growth model. Why? Because the company encourage cooperation between the line and the staff department so that we can be able to achieve synergy and a sort of matrix structure. The reason why we need cooperation and collaboration at all levels here is for the company to surpass or meet the expectations and the target that we have set. Because without mutual relationship between or among the staff, between the employees and the directors, then automatically nothing can be achieved. So we encourage a sort of flexibility, unity, including staff motivation at phase 5. So this one will aid good succession plan, and it will even increase the perceived organizational trust by the staff. In so doing, we are going to have harmonious relationship in phase 5 that we call phase of collaboration and cooperation. So due to that cooperation, team unity, teamwork in phase 5, then we are going to have a situation whereby we don't need more supervision. No supervision is needed. We have little supervision because all the staff know what to do. Anytime there is a lapses, they can assist themselves to cover up, assist themselves in solving, and carry out division of work. So in this phase, there is every chance that supervision and control decline sharply. So the company now face another crisis at this phase. This crisis is crisis of bureaucracy. Crisis of bureaucracy. And that crisis of bureaucracy require external alliance, consultancy, diversification of investments, benchmarking, staff training for us to have an enhanced and improved performance at phase 5. In phase 6 is the phase of growth through alliances.
Before you move to phase 6, sorry, I was raising my hand.
What do you say?
Sorry, I was raising my hand. Before you move to phase 6.
Okay, I'm with you. You can ask your question, man.
What is the difference between phase 4 and phase 5? They are both facing red tape and bureaucracy.
Yes, it is very normal. As company is increasing in size, we need to put in place a very stricter approach. And we are putting that in place because all these phases that you are seeing, they have a fragile stage. Because if the company did not put in place a stricter approach, there is tendency that complacence from the staff, it might be from the investors and the rest, can retrogress our performance. So the higher the company grow, the more the bureaucratic procedures that they follow. So it doesn't matter whether we have bureaucratic procedure in stage 4 and stage 5. What the scholar is trying to say is that at this 4 and 5, more strategic and policy have been taken. We have to look at the feasibility of any investment that we want to discuss about. We have to look at the acceptability. Is that understood? So many factors are being considered. If the company is intending to go into merger and acquisition now, for instance in stage 5, this one has to be critically looked at. It's not a decision that we have to take in next. So when company is growing, they become more formalized. They have culture, philosophy. So anything that against this culture and philosophy and is not in line with the vision and mission statement of the company will be rejected. And that's the reason why we have a very strict bureaucratic procedure in 4 and 5. In fact, including phase 6. So in phase 4 and 5 again, we must have risk appetite, risk management in everything that we are doing. Our risk stats are to be there. Ethical standards are to be there because we must comply with regulations, code of corporate governance. So that's the reason why we have those bureaucratic and strict procedure in 4 and 5. So in phase 6 that we call the phase of growth through
So what do you
alliance.
mean? Wait. So what do you mean by little standardization and go up again?
What did I mean by what?
Little standardization and formalization.
Little standardization and formalization. At what
Yes.
phase?
At phase 5, go up. Yeah, there.
At
Second
phase 5.
sentence. Yes, last paragraph on the first paragraph. Last
Okay.
sentence on the first paragraph.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. The reason why I put this there, when I interpret what the scholar is trying to say here, is that the scholar says that due to the cooperation among the staff and staff orientation, training, capacity development, they have already get themselves familiar with the company culture, modus operandi, and philosophy. So all these formal approach, the company staff have already get used to it. That is what is meant by little formalization and standardization. They are accustomed to the standard culture, the vision, mission of the company, and the goals that they want to achieve. So with that cooperation now, it makes it more easier. So, and we have less supervision. because they have accumulated years of experience and teamwork. Can I proceed, ma'am? Hello, Madam Mustafa.
You may. Thank you.
Thank you. So in phase 6 is the phase of growth through alliances. These alliances is very, very essential, most especially for companies that have in place experienced board of directors, experienced managers, and for a company that are innovative, visionary, that don't want to be static or relent on their little sources. So in strategic alliance here, company can go into alliance with their competitors. Company can go into alliance with new investors, corporate organizations, including the government. That is what we call PPP, public-private partnership. So the alliance can equally be achieved through merger, acquisition, and extensive networking. But anytime the company is going into alliance, the company must ensure that they don't compromise their vision and mission statement. The only condition under which the company can compromise their vision and mission statement, it is when the company is being acquired by another company. But if it is merger, if it's a situation whereby we just go into alliance to strengthen our relative areas of weaknesses, we must not compromise our vision and mission statement. And we should know that these alliances that we are talking about, some of the alliances does not require a change of name of the company. Some major alliance does not require forming independent new company. No, we are going to alliance to strengthen our service delivery, to overcome intense competition. We are going to alliance to extend our growth, competitiveness. Alliance can occur among competitors. You can see MTN and Globalcom going to alliance. We have seen many like that. And in this strategic alliance too, we have various types of strategic alliance. Maybe that one will be discussed fully under collaboration strategy. Because we have 3 types of strategic alliance. We have corporate level strategic alliance that is divided into 3. We have business level strategic alliance that is equally divided into 3. We have international strategic alliance. So this divided into 3 that I mean here, let me clarify. In a corporate level strategic alliance, company have 3 options. The 3 options is this. We have what we call diversifying strategic alliance. We have franchising strategic alliance. And we have synergistic strategic alliance. That is corporate level strategic alliance. In the business level strategic alliance, that one too, we have 3 types. We have uncertainty reducing strategic alliance, complementary reducing strategic alliance, and we have competitive reducing strategic alliance. That is 3. Same goes with international strategic alliance. That is what the likes of Dangote is facing now. Now that he has diversified into refinery business, he's going to be doing networking strategic alliance, synergistic strategic alliance, and many more. So the essence of this strategic alliance is for the company to expand their portfolio of investment, diversify investments, and tap unexploited external business opportunities within and outside the country. So this alliance make stage 6 to be characterized as the state of crisis of bureaucracy and litigations. Yes, there's tendency we might have litigation crisis, all because our partner that we want to go into alliance with might violate the fundamental aspect of this alliance. That can be breach of contracts, that can be breach of warranty. So we have to ensure that all these legal terms have to be spelled out during the alliance. So in alliance, party A can sue party B can sue party A. And if there is incidence of third party A can sue party C can sue B. So that is the crisis of litigation. And we have the crisis of aligning the company vision and mission statement, because that's the blueprint of our organization. Our vision statement is the dream of our company. It is the destination of our company. Our vision statement is what all our major strategic decisions, including the mission, policy, objective, revolve. So we don't compromise it. So our blueprints of the organization has to be holistically discussed during the alliance. So having looked at that, we have thoroughly looked at the 6 phases of the greenhouse growth model. So what are the uses of the greenhouse growth model? The significance of the greenhouse growth model. The greenhouse growth model is very useful in resolving growth pains. That growing pains means that it is very useful in resolving organizational conflicts. It helps in resolving crisis that comes with growth, crisis within the organization, crisis outside the organization. And another benefit of the greenhouse growth model is that organization will be prepared for any possible growing pains. That means that organization will know that there is no smooth transmission, that there is no perfect organization or business industry, that there are bound to be uncertainties, threats from the business environment. And as we are growing up, we are likely to face some challenges, so that we are going to put in place a contingency and proactive approach to manage and, if possible, overcome those challenges. So this model helps us to anticipate uncertainties and challenges and put in place strategy to cushion against these challenges and business risks. So there are many advantages that we can gain from it. How can we use the greenhouse growth model? How can we use the greenhouse growth model? The greenhouse growth model can be used through the adherence to these 5 major steps. The step 1 is to determine which phase of the model our company is currently. Are we in phase 1, or are we in phase 2 of the company life cycle? Or is the company in phase 3 or phase 4? How can we manage this phase so that we not decline, go back to phase 2? The second,
Sorry, I am very, very sorry. But please repeat the alliances. You gave 3 alliances and another sub alliance. Please repeat it. Thank you, sir.
the 3 alliances.
Mm.
I said that we have 3 types of alliances, strategic alliances. Alliance is called a cooperative strategy, and it is divided into 3 types. We have corporate level strategic alliance, which comprises of 3 types. We have 1, franchising strategic alliance. 2, synergistic strategic alliance, from the word synergy. 3, we have diversifying strategic alliance. So the parties that want to go into alliance can decide whether they want to go into the combination of the 3 or they want to use 1 or 2. So the second form of alliance that we have is business level strategic alliance. In the business level strategic alliance, company form that alliance for 3 reasons. And that's the reason why we have 3 types of business level strategic alliance. One is complementary strategic alliance. The second one is competitive reducing strategic alliance. While the third one is uncertainty reducing strategic alliance. Hope that is understood, man.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in the step of the greenhouse growth model, we have to identify the first state that we have, the state that we have presently. 2, we determine if we are close to the crisis point for that phase. So what we mean in that step 2 is that if the company, for instance, is in phase 1, in that phase 1, we use flat structure, entrepreneurial structure. Decision revolve around the owner or the directors of the company. So that phase 2 is now saying determine if you are close to the crisis point of that phase. The crisis of leadership is what we have in phase 1. If the entrepreneur is overwhelmed with a lot of decisions, to the extent that there are some pending decisions that are unattended to, a lot of crisis, that his own ability is not sufficient enough to make all strategic decisions, he needs a sort of assistance or delegation of duty, then we know that yes, I'm close to leadership crisis. So in so doing, we have to change the structure, we have to empower more staff, give them some delegated responsibility, and inform them to report to you. That is what the step 2 is telling you. Step 3, we have to determine what step need to be taken. What step need to be taken by you? That by you there is referring to the entrepreneur, the manager or the director. What step needs to be taken by the entrepreneur and your team? That team means the employee. To do what? To make transition. What are the tactics we can use? What are the strategies that we can put in place to ensure that we transmove from stage 2 to stage 3? All because this our company is bound to succeed. We can't be static in a place. We cannot allow our competitors to have edge over us. So the companies must put in place a lot of strategic measures. Maybe something like promotion, market penetration strategy, diversification strategy, alliance strategy. Whatever strategy that we have to put in place, we have to ensure that we keep moving. We must not experience stagnant or declining growth. That is what stage 3 is telling us. Stage 4. In step 4, track lesson as the change progresses, that we must have something to learn in each of these phases. In phase 1, what are the lessons that we learn? How do we overcome the crisis of leadership? When we transmit to phase 2, what are the myriad of challenges that the company face? What are the things that we put in place to overcome these challenges and achieve further growth? All these lessons must be upheld because it will help in the future, and it will help us to build the incoming staff It will help in the staff progression, capacity development. In time of hierarchy too, all the managers will grow with this experience. So they'll be able to manage future growth, performance of the company. Phase 5, we have to repeat the process every 6 to 12 months. So it's supposed to be a continuous exercise. It's an unending exercise. So if the company can continuously review the phases using all these steps, it will help us to experience spontaneous growth. It will help us to improve on our performance, increase our competitiveness, and meet expectation of the shareholders. So what are the shortcomings or the criticism of greener growth model? Because some scholars review this model and they come out with some observations. Some of the observations are this. The first one is that the model is too simple. This criticism does not mean that they condemn the model. No, it's just the observation of individual scholars, including you and I. You can read the model and see where some lapses there. So they said the model is too simple. Second, some scholars say that not every business will suffer crisis as it grows. I disagree with that. But they have to bail themselves out here that because many adapt easily without solving any obvious panic or crisis. So when you are saying that they adapt, that means yes, there is crisis, but they just put in place adaptation strategy. So 3, another critique is that the model does not really take account of the pace of growth. The account of the pace of growth, particularly in an increasing dynamic external environment. To me, that would be difficult to determine. It will be difficult to determine because we cannot really say if the company spent 1 year, 2 year, or at phase 1 before moving to phase 2. The number of time, the pace of growth between phase 2 and phase 3 will equally be difficult to determine. But the only thing that we have to know here, which I can chip in as an expert, is that the company can experience increasing pace of growth if the company is innovative. If the company is innovative, if they invest in research and development, if the company invests in staff capacity development, if the company invests in innovative equipment and embrace digitalization of operation, if the company evaluate their critical success factor and ensure customers' consonance at all time, such a company can have a rapid growth coupled with compliance with regulations. So when we abide with all rules and regulations, we don't have reputational damage, we keep an eye on our competitors, we do environmental scanning, then our company can have a high pace of growth in any industry where we operate. So next we look at merger and acquisition. Merger and acquisition, which is a familiar topic. It was stated in the syllabus M&A. The merger and acquisition, what do we mean by merger? So merger comes in place when we have two entities that come together to run a business. They can be approximately the same size, or one can be larger than the other. But what we need here is that in merger, we have two or more companies coming together to merge their business, pool resources together. share profits together based on the sharing ratio or agreed term. So we have example of a merger there, Access Bank and Diamond Bank. Is a merger. We could recall that there was a time that Diamond Bank was at the verge of total collapse. They went into distress. Not quite long that Sky Bank went into distress. Because of that distress, they are thinking of selling all their toxic assets locally and internationally. They want to make the bank to be a national bank. So many options come to the mind of CBN. So, and this comes at a time that CBN inject huge amount of money to rescue Skybank that period. And all these things that the CBN is doing is to avoid reputational damage for Nigerian banks and to address this issue of persistent bank distress that leads to loss of investment, loss of life. So what the CBN now do eventually is to look for buyer for Diamond Bank. So many companies show interest, but they are not able to meet the terms and conditions. So eventually we have a situation whereby Access Bank merged with Diamond Bank. We have so many examples that we can see. So what we need to know is that when we have complaint A merging with complaint B, having fulfilled some legal requirements and some conditions, and this merger and acquisition is done with consensus of mind, voluntarily, and is something that the law can enforce, then it is permissible in law to occur. But in acquisition, we have one company that is, it might be a multinational company, it might be a local company, it can be a conglomerate company that is financially buoyant, acquire underperforming company and take ownership of the company. It takes ownership because the company owns all the majority of the equity share. That is what we call acquisition. Like for instance, you see Coca-Cola acquire She company that produce She filter. That is what we call acquisition. It occurs in all industry, in the banking industry, manufacturing industry, we have construction industry. M&A is a common strategy that companies use, and it has a lot of advantages, among which are these. The first advantage is that acquisition and merger have several advantages as a strategic growth. It brings about a faster organizational growth and internal development. For instance, now, when we look at that Diamond Bank, they're one of the banks that have large number of branches, and they have millions of customers. Because this branch grants loans to small and medium scale enterprises. So this is advantage to Access Bank that match with them. Another advantage of merger and acquisition is that growth by acquisition of merger is much faster than starting from the scratch. Because we already have some structures in place. We have an established business or brand or product, employees and everything has been there. So we grow faster. Another benefit of acquisition is that in acquisition, it can give the buyer immediate ownership of new products, new markets, new employees, and new customers that will have been difficult to obtain through internal development, starting from the fresh. Added to that, acquisition enable an entity, that is company, to enter new markets where the barriers to entry are high. That is very fantastic. With acquisition, we can enter a saturated market. We can enter a restricted market. So there are many advantages of merger and acquisition. So some of the known disadvantages are it might be relatively expensive. It might be relatively expensive, costly to undertake. Apart from that, because of the amount of money that we invested in the acquisition and merger, the return on investment for the company making the acquisition might therefore be very low, particularly at, at the first phase of the acquisition or merger. So another disadvantage is this: a merger or acquisition can result in a loss of proportional ownership of the entity. That one has been interpreted and explained fully because I put it here that, for example, if two entities with an equal total value are merged together, a shareholder who has, for instance, 10% of the company before the merger might only own 5% of the merged company. So there is possibility that our equity share might reduce anytime there is a merger, because there's going to be a sort of restructuring and realignment between the two parties. And another major disadvantage is this caused a lot of crisis, is that the two entities, we have different organization structure, different management style, different culture, different system of salary and wages. So all these issues have to be resolved. So we have so many disadvantages of merger and acquisitions that I put there. So let's proceed to diversification and integration. What is the meaning of diversification? And I have to quickly inform you that diversification at this point, I might not really dwell more on it, but by the time we are looking at Igor Ansoff growth matrix, we are going to discuss diversification comprehensively. So, what do we call diversification? Diversification is a high risk growth strategy because it requires a company moving into both new product area and new markets at the same time. And if a company does not have experience on how to manage this new product area or new market, then it will create a lot of crisis for the company. That depends on how the company can manage this. And that's the reason why we advise that before we diversify, we have to do your underground survey plans to know the risks attached, the uncertainties and the crises we are likely to face. But it's not at all time that company move into both new product area and new markets in diversification. Because there's one thing we call concentric diversification. In concentric diversification, company diversify into a related line of business with their existing products. Company diversify. Like for instance, now we say Dangote Group or Dangote PSC. Let's use it as an example. Dangote Flour diversify into production of noodles or bakery business. It's a good example of what we call concentric diversification or related diversification. Because already they produce flour and they diversify into production of bread or noodles. Is a related diversification. So we are going to look at diversification critically under Igor Ansoff growth matrix. So in diversification, we have two types of diversification: related and unrelated diversification. And it comes with a lot of benefits and risks. So all the benefits, the risks, and in case we are being asked in exam condition that which one is more advisable for a company to invest in, we advise the company to invest in related diversification because it is less risky. It permits what we call strategic alignment or fit. Because unrelated diversification is highly risky, that we call conglomerate diversification. So we discuss on this. Integration.
I'm
Integration.
sorry.
Okay,
Sorry,
sir.
sir.
Yes,
Just to
sir.
jump in quickly on this. Now, I mean, you've spoken something very spot on the aspect of diversification.
Yes, sir.
Diversification. Sorry.
Yes, sir.
Are we going to look at this under and of theory that you did mention,
Yes.
or okay, all right. I
Yes.
mean, you
Yes.
mentioned something related and unrelated, and
Yes.
so if we're going to look at it, then it's fine. Thank you.
We are going to look at it because
All
the
right, thank
answer growth matrix is in the new syllabus too.
syllabus. Okay.
Do you get it?
All right.
Yes. And in that
All right.
answer growth matrix, the scholar says that apart from all other strategies that companies use for whatever strategic objective, so the scholar came up with internal development strategies that the company can use to gain competitive advantage, survival, stability, going concern, profitability, and meet the expectations of the investors. So the scholar says that we have four major strategies. That is one, penetration strategy, market penetration strategy; two, market development strategy; three, product development strategy; and the fourth one is diversification strategy. Is that understood?
Got you.
So that's the
Thank
reason why I say we are
No
still going
problem.
to meet it there so that we can be able to do justice to it.
Okay, no problem. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So integration is a term that means extending a business. And when we are talking of integration, we have two main types of integration. We have horizontal integration and we have vertical integration. With horizontal integration, it means that the entity extend its business by obtaining larger share of the existing product market. So anytime you see horizontal like this, you can do your hand the way I'm doing it here. Horizontal integration. It means that the company acquire one or more of its competitors. That is what we call horizontal integration. Typical example that I put here, an entity might acquire one or more of its competitor, e.g., Coca-Cola acquire Linker Bottling Company. What is the justification for this? Can someone tell me the justification? Why Coca-Cola invested? They first of all start with what we call buy-in strategy, meaning they invested larger proportion of money in the production of this product. They become a shareholders in that company. But along the line, they acquire the entire company. And it's for a strategic purpose. Can you quickly think within 1 or 2 minutes and tell me the reason why Coca-Cola invested or acquire Limca Bottling Company? Because this was a company that once sued Coca-Cola Bottling Company. I could recall that time. He sued Coca-Cola Bottling Company for the marketing and unethical competition. Is there any idea? Okay. So the reason why Coca-Cola invests heavily in Lincoln Bottling Company and later acquired the company is because of Tim, which is a competing product produced by their major rival, 7-Up Bottling Company. All these products that you are seeing, they have rivals. Coke have rivals in the market, competing products in time of cola. We have Coke, Pepsi, RC Cola, Biggie Cola, American Cola, and many more. So when when Coca-Cola Bottling Company produce Coke, 7-Up introduce Pepsi. When they produce Fanta, 7-Up introduce Mirinda. When they produce Sprite, 7-Up introduce 7-Up. Bottle for bottle, color for color. And their content are relatively similar. Even when 7-Up was having a problem, it was at the decline stage. It became a dog product for the company. All because of rumor by competitors that time that too much intake of 7-Up can cause cancer. It has gas. It can cause diabetes. It's affected their sales. They are even contemplating to withdraw further production of 7-Up. But before they do that, they introduce another product that we call Mountain Dew, so that both Mountain Dew and 7-Up can fight Sprite. So we have Schweppes being fight by Tim. I can see that Tim before Schweppes before people are begging, please give us Schweppes. Oga, put 2 bottles of Schweppes. You don't have Schweppes, ni? But ladies like it. This is a product that is a star product of the company. But along the line, the demand for this product dropped. Why Tim was doing very well in the market. To further fight Tim and reduce its market share, that is one of the reasons why Coca-Cola invested in Limca, because it's a lime product too, and the color is green. And once people see that, okay, Coca-Cola is the one producing Limca now, maybe they can now switch their buying behavior in favor of Limca. So there are strategic reasons why company invest or produce certain products. As our lectures unfold, I will be giving you so many industry examples that will empower us. So horizontal integration will acquire a competitor, or it might be their strategic business unit. But when it comes to vertical integration, hello, my learned people, can you see the slide now?
I think it's just
Hello?
coming up. Okay,
It's coming up. Okay, okay.
it's
Thank you.
back.
Okay.
Yes, back.
Bless you. So in vertical integration, we can merge. But there are some other forms of integration. Another form of integration. That is what we call forward and backward integration.
Sorry, I mean, maybe you should just take the vertical again. We lost you at that time, and I'm not sure we all
Okay,
had.
I said in the vertical integration, see it here, vertical integration. With vertical integration, an entity extends its business by acquiring or merging with another entity at a different stage in the supply chain. That is vertical integration. If you are current enough, you will discover that about 2 months ago, uh, MTN was threatening Globacom that they are going to cut off all their what's it called? Their service delivery in terms of data and some other thing, because they went into vertical integration and alliance. That up to now, Globacom is there to pay the agreed sum, which was lump sum of money that runs millions of naira. So it took the intervention of the federal government, House of Rep and House of Senate for this crisis to be resolved. And being a local indigenous company, they don't want such to occur, because it might lead to the exit of Globacom in the telecommunication industry. So I use that as example in that in vertical integration, we see coming together of a company in certain aspect of supply chain. It might not be the entire operational area. Like for instance, now let's assume we are doing a business. In this our business, we have the area of deficiency, in terms of ICT, information technology, data analysis. Vertically, we can integrate with a company that will do that and serve as our backbone. So an arrangement will be made on the agreed sum of money that the company will be paying. So that's the meaning of vertical integration. But it's different from forward and backward integration. In forward integration, another name for forward integration is downstream integration. Another name for forward integration is downstream integration. And it occurs when a company enters the product market of its customers. We enter the product market of our customers. That is what we call forward vertical integration. For example, let's look at the example that we have here. A manufacturer of tire might go into the production of motor cars or motorcycle as a wholesaler. So when you do this, you have entered the market of your customers. Another good example is that we have a situation whereby our customers buy a product from us. By the time they buy that product, they can repackage or not repackage, they have certain amount of money and sell to the final consumers. So in a way, we don't deal with the customers at all, with final consumer, end users. We only deal with marketing intermediaries, the wholesalers, retailers, and the rest. These are the people that buy product directly from us and sell to the final consumers. But now, the company now takes the decision that we want to embark on the use of direct selling. When we are now selling directly to the end users, we have entered the market of our customers. So that's what we call forward vertical integration. And it's opposite, it is opposite what we call backward vertical integration. Because in the backward vertical integration, that one is called upstream integration. Upstream integration that occur when a company enter the product market of its suppliers. The company enter the product market of its suppliers. So how can you understand this? Let's say, for instance, now we have a filling station that have numerous vendors, suppliers, that supply them with empty 5-liter jerry cans. This 5 liters plastic that we use to buy fuel. We have vendors that normally supply it in larger quantity. And we use this one to package our lubricating oil, engine oil, maybe for generator, for cars and what have you. And this is a practice we have been doing for so many decades. But now, as part of expansion strategy, as part of means of streamlining our operational expenses, the company now decided that they want to diversify into production of this plastic internally rather than buying it from external suppliers. That this one will reduce our costs, it will create more expansions and many other benefits. So that is what we call backward integration. And this backward integration has a lot of advantage because it will reduce our total operational costs. It will give us opportunity to sell our products by using penetration pricing strategy, selling at the lowest obtainable price in the market. This one will give us opportunity to retain our existing customers and capture more potential customers. Anytime we use backward vertical integration, it gives the company opportunity to compete offensively with the use of price. So this backward vertical integration too I think we are going to discuss on these two later on when we are looking at Michael Porter generic strategies. In the Michael Porter generic strategy, under cost leadership strategy, we have backward integration and forward integration that we are going to discuss extensively. So having looked at that, we are required to have the knowledge about forecasting tools and the two main types of forecasting. So what we call forecasting simply means a strategic planning tools that we use to assume. It is being used to make expectations or assumptions of future events. So that's the reason why I put it that forecasting is a strategic planning should be based on reasonable expectations of what is likely to happen in the future. Reasonable because we must not make ambiguous or unattainable forecasting. Some people do that in order to impress their employers, particularly the sales representative. So anytime we are doing forecasting, we have to ensure that we consider so many factors, both in the short and the long time. But the major thing is that our forecasting should be reasonable enough. So let's proceed to see that we have two main types of forecasting techniques. We look at all literatures. Up to now, I don't know of tomorrow, we have majorly two main types of forecasting techniques. We have quantitative forecasting techniques. So this one is a forecasting technique that predicts future outcome in numeric terms. That means that the quantitative forecasting use statistical and mathematical tools and data analytical tools to make future forecasts. That future forecast means that maybe we are making sales forecast. But on the other hand, qualitative, that is also called long-range forecasting. The qualitative forecasting does not involve the use of numeric terms. It doesn't require the use of statistical or mathematical terms or any analytical tools. Rather, it relies on the contributions from the directors, functional managers, external consultants, the company's employees, shareholders, and many more. That is qualitative forecasting. The reason why we are demanding from the contribution from the functional managers, directors, our salesmen, and the likes is because we want their experience to play a vital role and their judgment in aiding our forecasting. In quantitative forecasting use analytical tools like trend analysis. So this one we can use it to make historical data, and it's aid in benchmarking too. So it can predict how the trend of the sales can continue, maybe between July up to October. So we use it to know whether there is a constant pattern of sales or fluctuating pattern of sales and the kind of demand that the company's product is facing in the competitive market. We have different types of demand. Not those demand that we have in economics, so no. All this composite demand, no. In strategic marketing or marketing itself as a discipline, we have various types of demand that we can use: trend analysis, system model analysis, exponential growth, time series analysis to measure. quantitatively. The various types of demand that we have are no demand. No demand. That is when customers are not demanding for the product. We have fluctuating demand. The demand for the product is fluctuating. Demand today, we experience a appreciable increase in customers' demand. Tomorrow, the demand increase. Next tomorrow, the demand fall. Next week, we are experiencing extremely low demand from the customers. That's fluctuating demand. We have negative demand. In negative demand, the customers are not demanding for the product because they have a dislike for the product. They might feel that the product is unwholesome, it's not fit for consumption. Something like cigarettes or a greenwash product. When a product is greenwashed, they can have a negative demand. We have latent demand. When customers are demanding for a product that is not in existence, this will require development of new products, investment in research and innovation. So we have full demand and over full demand. We have so many types of demand stages, but this is not your syllabus, is an added knowledge. These are what all these marketing and sales managers are facing. So trend analysis, system modeling, exponential growth, time series analysis, including all these are mean median mode, SPSS, that is a statistic package for social sciences, E-view analysis, linear regression, chi-square. All these are the quantitative techniques that we can use to make forecasting under quantitative. Any statistical or mathematical tools, that is quantitative. But in qualitative, no statistical tools. So in qualitative sales forecasting now, qualitative, some of the methods that we use under the qualitative are Delphi techniques. Don't mind the name. The simple meaning of Delphi is for you to seek for expert opinion from external consultants. That is Delphi. Internally, we are going to use our salesmen, we are going to use our functional managers, we are going to use our finance manager or director, shareholders, and some stakeholders internally. But now, if you want to now call the attention of the external consultants to see their superior judgment and contribution, that is what we call Delphi techniques. So with the Delphi techniques, the company seek for the opinion of a number of different experts outside the organization. And with this Delphi method, the company will tell them the areas of forecasting they are interested in. And they can even develop a questionnaire. They give them a questionnaire to fill and come with a robust forecasting techniques and advice. So all these independent contributions and opinions of all the external consultants will be compiled so that we can be able to have a consensus of the forecasting techniques and ideas to use. So this questionnaire can be repeated as many times as possible, depending on the time lag as which the company normally do their forecasting. So with Delphi method require the use of expert opinion. So we have it in the note. The Delphi techniques is a method of qualitative forecasting in which a consensus forecasting is developed from the opinion of number of different experts. This consensus here, don't mind is a word that everybody can use. Consensus means agreement of mind, meeting agreement. So, and you can see in Delphi method, a questionnaire is sent out to each of the experts, and their anonymous responses are aggregated because we don't allow them to know each other. That's why we call it anonymous responses. The independent opinion, expert opinions, we aggregate this together. So this one is EPOS. It aids strategic planning and give us an opportunity to have the idea on the domain on which we can make our forecasting on. It is less costly, it is less time consuming, and it does not require rigorous statistical or mathematical analysis. So at the same time, we have to know that under the DeFi method here, I've mentioned it, the company can use their sales representative. If the company they produce probably a consumable product, or it might even be not consumable product like generator, mobile phone, or whatever, you can do forecasting on it. All our salesmen, our wholesalers, distributors, accredited agents, and dealers, we can ask them to forecast. Even some companies, under qualitative techniques, they do what we call consumer panel. They can call some of the consumers, or likely some of these are major consumers that buy in bulk. They can ask them to predict the likely quantity of the product that they can sell between now and December. So that one can be basis of our forecasting too. So next we look at the assessment of business strategy. Assessment of business strategy. The essence of this assessment of business strategy is that before we adopt any strategy, after which we might formulate the strategy, make our strategic choice, before implementation of the strategy. And some companies, true, during the formulation of the strategy, they do the assessment of strategy, so that the implementation of the strategy will not have adverse negative effect or gray effect in the future. So according to Johnson and Scholes, Johnson and Scholes suggested that when judging the strengths or weaknesses of a proposed strategy, the strategy must be evaluated for its one, suitability. That meaning is very essential. We know that any strategy that we are using, we must assess the suitability of the strategy. Suitability means that does the strategy address the strategic requirements of the company, given the circumstances and the situation? That is the meaning of suitability. Does it address the strategic requirements of the company? Is it in line with our vision and mission statement? Looking at the constraint of resources, for instance, will this strategy be suitable if implemented, and we are not going to run into crisis? So we look at situational problem before we take any drastic decision to accept strategy. And at the same time too, the suitability, the strategy must be suitable to the company capability, resources, and competency. No matter how beautiful the strategy, the suitability of the strategy is very, very essential before implementation. Secondly, acceptability. Acceptability means, does it address the strategic requirements in a way that will be acceptable to significant shareholders? So when you look at that statement, it's telling you that any strategy that does not meet the expectations or strategic intent of the shareholders, or any strategy that is not in line with the vision and mission statement of the company, should be rejected outrightly, irrespective of the source where it is coming from. So the strategy must be accepted and must suit the strategic intent of the shareholders, the board of directors, and all other major investors. feasibility. So feasibility is telling us, is the strategy profitable? That's the reason why I say it is practical. Feasibility, it is practical, yes. So because included within the assessment of acceptability or feasibility, it should be financial analysis. When we are looking at acceptability, suitability, at the central, the financial analysis is key. So we have to look at the financial analysis of the proposed strategy. Why? Because look at this statement, please. Strategy might be suitable and it might succeed in their business objective. However, if the expected financial return is too low, such a strategy is not a good strategy. Unless if the financial return that we are expecting at the stage of implementation of the strategy is low, but there is a promising potential increase in strategy over time. That's the only time we can say we are adopting the strategy. If the returns from the strategy is negative, if the returns from the strategy is low, and there is no potential opportunity for future increase in profitability, such a strategy should be rejected automatically. Because if the strategy is implemented, what is the implication? If the strategy could only be implemented at a loss, then it should not be undertaken. So the feasibility of the strategy focus on how profitable is this strategy if implemented. And that's the reason why I can put this little caption, acronyms, abbreviation, PIMS. PIMS. That is the profit impact of the marketing strategy of a company. Any strategy that we want to implement or we have implemented, it is recommended that we evaluate the PIMS of the strategy. PIMS. Don't worry, I will include it probably in our next lecture. PIMS. Measuring the profit impact of marketing strategy. And that is the essence of the feasibility of any strategy. How profitable it is. So we have suitability of a strategy too that we have discussed about. How suitable it is for the strategic requirements. I've informed you. That's what we started with. And I try to expand it so that when we can read, we can be able to have more knowledge about what we call suitability of a strategy. So by suitability of a strategy is suitable if it will achieve the strategic objective. Strategic objective, take note. But if in exam they use strategic intent, INTEND is the same thing. Strategic, if we can achieve the strategic objective for which it is intended. For instance, if the purpose of the strategy is to gain competitive advantage, that means the reason why they put or implement that strategy, adopt it, is because the company wants to improve on their competitive strengths. The strategy might be implemented for survival. The strategy might be implemented to enhance sales. That is the strategic objective. So we must ensure that any strategy that we put in place must be a value-adding strategy. That strategy must help us to achieve whatever objectives of setting the strategy. At the same time, that strategy too must be set within a reasonable risk limit. For instance, let's proceed. In this paragraph we have, similarly, how suitable are the chosen strategy for market development, product development, or diversification? How suitable? So the question now is the business risk in the strategy acceptable? All companies have limits of the risks they can accept on any investment. That is what we call risk appetite. You must have a risk appetite. Some companies are, or individuals too, they have a low risk appetite, while some companies have a high risk appetite if the investment is profitable and achievable. So you must not go beyond the risk appetite, the limit of risk that is variable by the investors. So our risks might be too high. If the risk is too high and the company does not have the capacity to cushion against the risk, then it's better you go for a low risk investment that is profitable. So these are some of the things that suitability of a strategy address. Is that understood? At the same time, in the choice of our strategy too, we have to look at the life cycle of the organization. Greenhouse model comes in now. When we are in the first phase of our organization, the pioneering phase, the first phase of our existence, it is not advisable for a company to pursue extremely high risk business. The company must start with a bearable or low risk appetite. Is that understood? Because the strategy that is applicable at phase 1 might not be applicable in phase 2 in some instances. That tells you the reason why some strategy fails and the reason why some organization structures succeed or it doesn't succeed. Even in the product life cycle, the strategy we use at the introduction stage might not be applicable in the decline stage. So company must ensure that they look at the suitability of their products in relation to the organization life cycle, product life cycle, their resources, and the rest. So another one, we have suitability to the resources and competency of the organization. Please note, don't advise company, and if you have a business that you are nurturing, ensure that any strategy that you are putting in place is within the limit of resources at your disposal and your competency. This is one of the reasons why strategy fails, because the strategy is not attainable, because they have set a strategy that the company do not have the resources to achieve. And your competencies too is a factor to consider. So some companies, they follow what other competitors are doing in formulating strategy, but they don't look at the resources in terms of the manpower, machine, money, methodology, time, information, and all other resources. In addition, they fail to look at their limit of competency. That is what we call bounded rationality. You must ensure that you operate within the limit of the company competency, capability, core competency, and specialization. Anytime you extend beyond this limit, then it will affect the company. You might end up not achieving anything. So company must ensure that for them to achieve their strategic intent, you must consider a strategy that fall within the limited resources we have and our competency. Suitability in terms of business profile analysis. So in terms of business profile analysis now, we are now talking that the company should consider their brand name, they should consider the profit to be realized, they should consider the customers that they want to roll out this strategy for. Because if you don't consider the business profile, that strategy will not yield the expected significant positive result. So we have to ensure that a strategy can also be evaluated by comparing the features of the marketing strategy that appear to make it successful and profitable. That one has to be considered. For example, here, a product could be positioned in the market as being off market and exclusive. We position it as off market and exclusive, and could have a brand name associated with luxury. If that is the case, what will happen? A strategy to sell the product in the supermarket might not that be suitable, because we are choosing the wrong distribution or sales outlets to sell the product. So in your business profile analysis, we have to look at the strategy, and we have to look at the appropriate mix that we are going to use to execute our strategy. So what are some of the questions to consider when we are doing our evaluation of strategy to know how suitable it is, how acceptable it is by the shareholders, how feasible it is in terms of profitability, and many more? The question is, we have to ensure that, is there sufficient finance for the strategy? Can we avoid it? That is number one. Two, can we achieve the necessary level of quality level of quality? Can you see now? Analysis. Do we have it in place? Do we have the marketing market positions? Is there the marketing script? We obtain the raw materials that will be needed to implement this strategy. What is the source of the raw material? Is it locally or internationally? How consistent is the supply of this raw material from this source or sources? Or are we embarking on backward integration to generate substantial proportion of these raw materials internally? A lot of companies are doing that to augment what they are buying from external suppliers, so that the company will not run out of stock of materials. Because anytime you run out of stock of material, then there is a problem. There will be temporary or total stoppage in production. This one will affect profitability. It will affect the image of the company. There will be loss of customers and many more. So can we obtain the raw materials that will be needed to implement this strategy? It's a very big question that we have to ask ourselves, because there must be steady flow of raw materials that will be needed to transform or process into finished goods. So we have to look at it in relation to competency. Will our technology be enough to implement the strategy successfully? Or we have to borrow technology or go into alliance? So these are some of the key things that we need to check under evaluation of strategy. We have discussed about acceptability of strategy, but the only thing that we have to know about acceptability of strategy here, that I put here, is this: strategic fit. Strategic fit. Strategic fit. And I told you another name for this strategic fit is strategic alignment. Any strategy that we want to implement, any investment that we want to diversify into must fit with our mode of operation. It must align, be in consonance with our vision and mission statement. That is what we call strategic fit. So if the strategy cannot fit into our operational process, vision and mission statement, culture and what have you, we don't go into it so that we will not run into problem. So next we look at business ethics. So the business ethics simply tells a corporate organization to ensure compliance with law and regulations. So under the business ethics, we can see that companies should comply with the law. They must abide with laws, governments, regulations, constitutional provisions, code of corporate governance, CBN directives, agency laws, environmental sustainability laws, employment laws, whatever the nature of the laws. It is expected of a company to adhere rigidly, strictly to all these laws. Total compliance. That is what we call business ethics. You must not act in an unethical manner or perpetrating any uh, illegal contracts. It will affect the organization. It attracts sanctions, and it can even cause damage of reputation for the organization. And that's the reason why we said you must have compliance to laws. So apart from the business ethics, we have said that the meaning is to comply with laws. So that business ethics require regulation issues. And what are the regulation issues? The regulation issues is one, acting within the law, irrespective of the nature of the business we are doing. Once that we have a law governing that nature of business operation, you must comply. Like for instance now, the rule-based approach or law is a law that has been put in place locally and internationally to govern all listed companies, irrespective of size or age of the company. You must abide by the law. So the ethical issues and regulation implies that companies must act within the law. So in international and local business, ethical behavior often means compliance with acceptable international and local code of behavior. You must refrain from illegal business. You must refrain from ultra vire businesses. You must refrain from bribery or something that we call grey marketing, any unethical business act. The company must not perpetrate it, and their employees too must be discouraged from doing so because they represent the organization. So acting within the law is one of the ethical issues and regulation. Two, fair and honest dealings with suppliers, customers, distributors, including our competitors and shareholders. There should be fair and honest dealings with them. Another ethical stand is that acting fairly towards employees and showing due concern for the welfare of the employees. We have to contribute immensely to the employees' career growth, their welfare. We have to motivate them, pay them salary that commensurates with their input and effort. We must show concern for their career growth too. and not just productivity. But there are some managers or leaders like that, supervisors like that, that under this point number 3 that we are looking at, they don't act fairly towards the employees, and they don't show due concern for their welfare. Even in critical situation whereby some staff comes to them holding their stomach, that man, sir, please, I don't know how I'm doing now. I don't know. Maybe I have to go, man. I'm having abdominal rigidity or whatever. He said, well, when do we resume? This is just 11 o'clock. You are saying you're having abdominal rigidity. How many units of product have you produced? He said, man, I've tried to put some 2 or 3 cartons, whatever. Hey, if you like, you can go. I will consider you don't come today. And you can manage till 6 o'clock so that you can be paid today. Look at the graphics of that statement. It shows the manager is only after productivity. These are the managers that Blake and Martin called 9.1 manager, production center or production rusher manager. They have a high concern for productivity than the employees' welfare. It's highly unethical. Part of the ethical regulation says that a company must show respect for human rights. We must show respect for human rights. We must be socially responsible to the society. All these things are part of what we call ethical regulations. So the next is an ethical stance. So the ethical stance simply means, let's look at the definition together. An ethical stance is the extent to which an entity will exceed its minimum legal and ethical obligations to stakeholders and the society in the general. Again, ethical stance, because at times you say I'm too fast. Ethical stance is the extent, the degree to which an entity will exceed its minimum legal and ethical obligation to stakeholders and society in general. So the ethical stand makes us to know our limits. The ethical stand makes us to know the fundamental rules and regulations that the company must abide with and they must not violate. And the ethical stance too give us a focus instead of going outside what the company did not consider as ethical stance. But by the time we have ethical stance, it gives us a spectrum within which we are going to operate. This ethical stance before was not extended to cater for the employees. You can imagine. It was only focused on the shareholders alone. With series of agitations, confrontations, and a lot of persuasions with litigations in court here and there. So a lot of companies now shift their position in broadening their ethical stand to cover 4 positions. So we have to know that there is a range of different ethical stands that a company might take. There is a range of ethical stands that a company might take. But it is useful to group them into how many I told you? 4 broad positions on a scale from position 1 to position 4. What is the position 1? They are very simple. The position 1 of the ethical stance that says that the company takes in view that it is only interest. Its only interest should be the short-term interest of the shareholders. Can you see that position 1? That the position 1 says that the company takes the view that its only interest should be the short-term interest of the shareholders. Meaning that what the company should prioritize at the short time is just the interest and satisfaction of the shareholders. How we can increase their wealth, profitability, and surpass their expectation. So it says that business decisions should be taken with satisfying shareholders' interest as the only objective. Why? These are the orientations, ethical perceptions that we are trying to change. And thank God it has been relaxed or a little bit flexible now. And that's the reason why we have position 2. What does the position 2 says? The company takes the view that the interests of its shareholders are the most important concern. They still emphasizes there. But, thank God, that in the long run, the company will benefit by showing some concern for the interests of these employees, communities, the general public, and the environment. So they are now advising companies. Agree that the shareholders in the company, they own and manage the company, they finance it. We have to show greater ethical concerns, responsibilities to the employees too. Because the employees of the company, they are the assets of the company. They are valuable assets. Without them, nothing can be achieved by the shareholders, including the board of directors. So the employees have to be compensated. The community too, our host community that allow us to do business. They don't make the business environment to be hostile. They are even part of our customers, dealers. We have to give back to the community, the general public, and see to environmental sustainability. The position 3 on the ethical stance, the position 3 says that the company should recognize an obligation not only to its what? Shareholders, but to other stakeholders group. So with this point now, that informs us that there is a sharp distinction between shareholders and stakeholders. All shareholders are stakeholders of a company, but not all stakeholders are shareholders of a company. And we
Hello,
must,
sir.
hello, I'm with you. I'm with you, man. You can ask your question, please. Hello, do you have any question?
Sir, what brought up, sir? Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you, man.
Hello, sir. What brought up
I can
this
hear you.
ethical stance? What is the basis of this? What brought up this ethical stance? Because is it a
Okay, what brought
model or
the no. What brought the ethical stance is that we are talking about ethical regulations, the need for a company to comply with laid down rules and regulations by the government, agency, CBN, financial institutions, like for instance, both here out now, bank and other financial institutions. Do you get it? So to ensure this compliance, there is need for a company to have ethical culture that we call ethical stance. Is that understood? It is when you put these things in place and you don't prioritize the interests of the shareholders alone, that is the only way the company can have acceptable ethical stance and compliance within the industry where they are operating without running into any problem. Is that understood? Even we see it as just one line statement, a word in the syllabus that students are required to know the meaning of ethical stance. Anything that we see in the syllabus, if I can say the students are required to know the meaning of ABC, I have to teach you because we don't know the direction where the exam is going. We don't know the topic or subtopic of interest of the examiner in a forthcoming exam. So ethical stance is just telling us what the companies are expected to do in order for them to comply with lay down rules and regulations and have industrial harmony with the shareholders, stakeholders, the community where they are doing the business, and the entire public. Is that understood, man? Can we proceed?
yes, sir? Thank you.
You are welcome, man. So in number 3 that we are saying, that number 3 position says that the company you must recognize an obligation not solely to your shareholders, but to other stakeholders. And I was not telling you that there is a difference between shareholders and stakeholders. I said all shareholders are stakeholders of the company, but not all stakeholders are shareholders of the company. So that has to be noted. So, and I love this position 3 in that this one is more encompassing. It's advising company that all different categories of stakeholders, we have to ensure that we are responsible to them. All different categories of stakeholders, starting from internal stakeholders, external stakeholders, primary and secondary stakeholders, narrow and wide stakeholders, legitimate and illegitimate stakeholders, known and unknown stakeholders. We have so many types like that. So we have to be responsible to the stakeholders. So these stakeholders too, we have it as a topic on its own. So we are going to discuss on, and we discuss on the stakeholders theory that was propounded by Mendelo. We have a lot to learn. In position 4, the company has ethical obligation towards the society and should be a shaper of the society, meaning that it must be socially responsible to the society through job creation, provision of basic infrastructural facilities, financial assistance to the needy, employment of physically challenged job seeker. Many things can be done. Avoidance of environmental pollution. You must be a shaper of the society. So what are the consequences of unethical behavior? If a company did not have ethical stance, so what are the consequences? What are the consequences of unethical behavior? Can you please tell me one before we proceed? The consequences of
Sorry,
unethical behavior.
sorry, sir, sir,
I'm with you,
sorry,
sir.
sir. Okay, please, the time is almost 11,
Okay.
so yes, sir, and we like to go to church and stuff.
Okay, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you. We soon round up. I was even thinking that. Oh, is there any other opinion contrary to that? Hello? Hello? Okay, we round up by 11. That means I will cut this slide later. We continue with CSR in the next class. So, what are the consequences of unethical behavior? I'm asking now. Let's make this class to be interactive. At least you have been trying. I appreciate that. Unethical behavior, if there is no response, can cause 1. Reputational damage for the company. Unethical behavior is cause reputational damage for the company. 2. Unethical behavior cause the risk of being found out. What is that risk of being found out? That means it causes litigation crisis. The individual can sue you, investors can sue you, the community can sue you, NGO, the government can sue you. Unethical behavior can cause premature exit from the business industry. It can affect our brand and customers' patronage, and it chase away our existing and potential investors. So with that, since our guy says that we should end the class by 11, I don't see any contrary opinion. Maybe people has already planned their routine, and the class will end by 11. So we continue from this place next week. I will drop the lecture material immediately
Hello, sir.
so that we can read again while we are.
Hello, sir.
Sir, hello, I'm with you, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Hello,
Sir,
Dr.
is
Anthony,
it
you can talk,
okay?
sir. Morning.
Sir, I don't know, since we're having a little bit of challenge in this time factor issues, is it
Yes, sir.
possible that this lecture can be moved a little bit into the day, unlike 8 a.m.? I don't know because
Okay, maybe we should move it to 8 p.m.
that's my no moving it forward from 8 the time to in between the day, like in the afternoon, or I don't know. That's my own thoughts. So I don't know what
We're
the
moving
other
it
members
forward
are
in the
doing.
afternoon. That's provided, that's a good contribution. But provided we don't have another class. Some of us that are here, our scholars here, some might have, if you don't have another course that you are going to do that time, you can look into that. If the whole house agree
There is no
that, okay,
class for professional,
so
sir. There is no class for professional for only in the morning and in the
during the
evenings. During the afternoon, we are free.
in the evening,
Professional students are free. In the afternoon, professional students we are free. But in the evening by 7, we have class 1.
okay, in the evening by 7 we have class. Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Another
sir. So
suggestion,
at least this
opinion,
class
because the
should be
management.
shifted to from 10 upwards. 10 will
Sir,
be fine.
sir, 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 excuse me,
I'm
sir. Can you hear
listening.
me? Okay. The reason why we are saying the classes we have only 8 and 10 is because case study has not started. So when case study also starts, they will have to consider the time too.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hello, any other contribution, please? Mr.
I think
Emmanuel. Okay,
the
man, it
case
seems
study
you raised
also
up your hand the
the,
other time.
the, the case study can also
No,
be
no, no. I
fitted
think that's
at a
fine.
particular.
Mine is
Hello.
that as much as everyone has differing opinion, my take is um,
Yes.
from the look of things, the 8 a.m. for this class is not really convenient for most people, including you, from the look of things. So it's only logical that we move it a bit forward into the day. When the time for case study
If
begins,
it
of
should we
course,
make
we'll
it
only
9 to
come.
11? Is it that 8 o'clock that is the problem? That maybe we should make it to 9 to 11? Because if we have it, if we say we should shift it to 7. No, okay, you have lecture 7 today. You have
We
lecture
have
You,
7
you can
lecture
today.
by
you, you,
7. Yes. Let the time
you
be
can you can
10,
make it
10
around.
a.m. 10 a.m. will be fine. 10 a.m.
10 to 12. Can we make it to 12?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
that's fine. And also the case study too
10
can
to
be fitted in that same time because since case study slash
anytime we are doing case
SFM,
study, we might not have estimate. That's the way we design the timetable.
that's what I'm
And
saying.
that will be
Yeah, so the
announced.
case
10
study,
o'clock,
yes, yes, so that the case study can
Yes.
also be
10
fitted
to
in.
12. Okay, 10 to 12. Okay. Thank you. Bless you all. To enjoy the rest of your day and lectures. All the best.